is a Christological error. It's a kind of a neo-Doceticism. Now this is an interesting analysis too. A neo-Doceticism. This is one of the early heresies that was refuted a long time ago by the early Christian church fathers without question. My goodness, this goes way back. But if it's being resurrected again, no pun intended, by modern day people who deny the physical resurrection, maybe we'd better pay attention to this. The Doceticists, of course, were the 2nd century unorthodox group who denied that Jesus was truly human. They believed that Jesus was God, but that he only appeared as human. A similar heresy existed in the 1st century. John wrote of it when he warned against those who deny that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh. See, this is 1 John 4:2. John was explicitly referring to the incarnation. But the perfect participle has come. This may also indicate that Christ, having taken on and continuing in the flesh, he still remains, that is, after his resurrection, in the flesh. This is beautifully presented with him. In the parallel passage in 2 John 7, he used the present participle, calling anyone a deceiver who does not acknowledge Jesus Christ as coming and remaining in the flesh. Hence, John was speaking of Christ as being in the flesh even when he wrote, which was after the resurrection. So denying the material nature of the resurrection body, as post-resurrectional Doceticism does, denies that the one who came in the flesh was also raised in the flesh. See, that's the Christological error. And there are soteriological problems with denying the material resurrection of Christ. Now, this is powerful. The New Testament teaches that belief in the bodily resurrection of Christ is essential for salvation. Romans 10:9 and 10. It is part of the gospel. 1 Corinthians 15:1-5. Without a physical resurrection, there is no material continuity between pre-resurrection and post-resurrection body. They would be two different bodies. But Gundry correctly observes a physical continuity is also needed. If the human spirit, say sort of a third party, be the only connection between the mortal and resurrected bodies, the relationship of the two bodies to each other is extrinsic, and to that decree unimpressive as a demonstration of Christ's victory over death. In even stronger terms, he concludes that the resurrection of Christ was, and the resurrection of Christians will be physical in nature. Anything less than that undercuts Paul's ultimate intention that redeemed man possesses physical means of concrete activity for eternal service and worship of God in a restored creation. There is an eschatological problem with the denial of the physical resurrection as well. If Christ did not rise in a material body, victorious over death, then believers have no hope that they will be victorious over physical death either. And this is the idea of 2 Timothy 1 and 10. It is only because of the physical resurrection of Christ that believers can triumphantly proclaim, "O death, where is your victory? O death, where is your sting?" 1 Corinthians 15:55. Only through the physical resurrection has Christ abolished death. And what this did, the ultimate result of this astonishing situation, is that he brought life and immortality to light through the gospel. 2 Timothy 1 and 10. And that is Norman Geisler's article. That is so powerful. That is so succinct. I really enjoy the Greek exegesis that he went through to describe this. Just briefly, I'll tell you, I went through the Bibliotheca Sacra. I went all the way back to Volume 2, May 1845. Back 1 year after Joseph Smith's martyrdom, there was an article on the nature of our Lord's resurrection body. And this particular person, E. Robinson, the professor in Union Theology Seminary in New York, says much the same on pages 293, 294, 295. Skipping, I'm going through. Oh, and he talks about Christ showing the apostles his hands and his feet. And he says, because the Spirit does not have flesh and bones as I do, as you see that I have. And he says, this is on page 301, he says, first, what they saw was not a spirit or a phantasm, and it was his own very self, the same identical body of flesh and bones which they had before known. He appealed to the testimony of their own senses. And then he goes on, the disciples believed the body of their Lord after his resurrection to be the same identical body of human flesh and bones which they had seen crucified and laid in the sepulchre. And our Lord himself took special pains to impress this very belief upon their minds. He says that on page 303. He says on page 304, we have the strongest evidence as above presented that our Lord, so long as he was on earth, was in his human body. And the evidence is equally strong that he now dwells in heaven in a glorified body. You want God as a man in heaven? E. Robinson in 1845 is showing you where he is. B. H. Roberts showed it in his Mormon Doctrine of Deity argument with the Reverend Vonderdonk from Pocatello, Idaho, back in the early 1900s. Going on to page 311. Oh, I'll read his summary. Why not? This is a good summary. I've already stated the two conclusions which follow irresistibly from the facts recorded by the chosen witnesses of our Lord's resurrection. The first conclusion is this, that the disciples believed the body of their Lord after his resurrection to be the same identical body of flesh and bones which they had seen crucified and laid in the sepulchre. And his second conclusion is that our Lord himself took special pains to impress this very belief upon their minds. No candid inquirer can call in question the completeness of the evidence on these 2 points. If then our Lord was not thus in his human body, it follows that he took special pains to deceive his disciples, and that they were actually deceived. This then is the tremendous result. I shudder while I write. Our holy and blessed Redeemer was a deceiver. The holy apostles were false witnesses of God, and our holy religion, the sacred fabric of Christianity, with all of its blessed and widespread influences, is the most stupendous delusion the world ever saw. From such a consummation may God deliver us. That's the conclusion if Jesus was not resurrected. E. Robinson caught on to that. That's an 1845 article. That was very interesting. The conclusion just 1 year after Joseph Smith's death, and now the renewed in the same Bibliotheca Sacra, the same journal in 1989 by Norman Geisler. The evidence still remains the same. God, Jesus Christ, fully God, fully man, is a resurrected, immortal man, and this is our eternal destination also. This destroys the Trinity creeds. I don't know if Christians have thought all the way through that, but I will get back to some of those Trinity ideas in the creeds and show how Christ's resurrection completely decimates those creeds. Why? Because as Geisler correctly noted, the idea of an opposition of body and spirit, of immaterial versus material, this is a Platonic, Gnostic, existential philosophy. It is not biblical. This is enough to demonstrate that the creeds are not based upon biblical materials, but they had to bring in Greek philosophy in order to make sense of relationships which even the Emperor Constantine said was completely trivial and of no consequence whatsoever, and he was mad as spit that everyone was arguing about it. So, thank you for joining me in these Backyard Professor podcast series. I thoroughly enjoy researching them for you and sharing them with you. I'll see you next time on the podcasts, and remember, have a great life.